Welcome to your Halloween nightmare.
Alright, so I got the fender all put on and finally adjusted and everything fits. So I thought I'd throw a 275 on here. Now these are the old 275s that I had off the 92. And I've got it jacked all the way up with a jack underneath. So here's the handle. So Jack's lifting up the tire all the way up, and it's basically touching now the metal on the body to where it should sit roughly flush. So it's got maybe about 3/8 of an inch from the sidewall here to this inner side of this fender. And that's roughly about where it's going to be, and I just wanted to kind of see. So that's what the end goal will look like. Obviously this will sit up higher. Got some lowering springs and that I'll put on here. So this is approximate, but this thing's starting to get a little attitude to it. So with the tire fit, knowing that I need to go up from there, it's time to start cutting the metal out to get that tire clearance up for the suspension travel. A lot of people now that I've seen are cutting from here and following this body line all the way down and cutting out to here. All the way back down to here. Now, I'm not sure, other than just following the body line, why you would want to take all that out. So I'm going to start short. I know it needs to come to the top here to take this off. And that'll give you suspension travel up and down. So I need to take this outer metal off. And it's going to kind of curve down here to match up at this point. So I wanted to, again, make a pattern, because I'm a pattern guy apparently. And I thought, how am I going to be able to do this? I don't have an axle to basically give me a circular pattern in that. So I came up with a plan. So the plan includes something round called a tire. Now, no need to reinvent the wheel on this. I actually saw this from a guy named Darren over in Idaho, who was about a week ahead of me building his on his wide body. So we've been sharing back and forth pictures and ideas and that stuff. So Darren, I give you credit for this picture because this is what I'm going to do. So the tire shape itself is approximately the same size as what I'm going to run on here. I'm going to run some 18s, looking for a 315 wide, and so they should be an approximate replication of this diameter. So knowing that, I can take a scale, just my simple scale, and run this straight off to where it gets to that body line. And I know the tire is round, that if I take my scale across, that I can then mark all the way around the tire, and it's going to give me the shape I want, a round shape of basically what metal I need to at least start cutting out to give myself an idea of what it needs to be done to be able to lift the inner to the outer. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this, and then I will show you the finished line of where it's done, and then I'll show you the cutting piece. Okay, so there's kind of your rough estimate of where it should be based on the tire. And the tire, you know, is not going to move fore aft or in and out, assuming you have a panhard bar. It's not going to move in and out. So really, you really just kind of need to concentrate on up and down for the tire movement through the suspension. Now, granted, it will move forward and back a little bit as the bushings compress and all that during the suspension travel. But you just need to kind of give it enough clearance and rough estimate. So I know I need to cut from here, following this line, and then down. Now that's my starting point, so I will get the outer metal out, obviously, and then I will start working on getting the inner metal moved up and to be able to tack weld it in place to be able to get my, clearance out of the way. Alright, so before you start cutting, always remember to use safety gear and that, gloves, obviously eye protection, even a face shield and anything else. So I thought since it was Halloween, I'd go out and get something special for a face shield and that, and here's what I came up with. What do you guys think? So the guy at the store told me this was completely OSHA approved. I can do it all day long. The only question is, how do I put glasses on? So Is this less scary? I don't know. Anyway, let's get cutting.
Can I break this hold from you? It would mean everything to me if I do. Tired of hearing excuses you're making. Future is set, it is mine for the taking. Spending all my time living I've made up. I need to wake up. Holding my breath until you're gone. Anywhere that is far from you. You only wanted me to fail. Oh, I'm this way because of you. Fall every day to overcome despite you. Wake up. Wake up. Tired of hearing excuses you're making. Future is set, it is mine for the taking. Spending all my time living I've made up. I need to wake up.
Okay, so with the top edge now cut, what I've done is I basically made a secondary cut along the wheel well edge here. A lot of this is primarily for you guys so you can kind of see, but this is the piece that comes out. And so what you have now is the inner and the outer, and you can see that there's a gap there. So that these come down here and they come together right at this edge, fold under, and then it's spot welded around the perimeter this way. So just take the window out just so you can kind of see what I'm going to do. So the goal here is I want to take off this double layer, obviously, here. So I need to cut again inside here so that I can take this off. Now, I also do want to make a little bit better cut down here. It's kind of short, and I want to round it off, make it a little bit more curved this way. So I'm going to cut another piece here, make a cut there, and then on this side also, I'm going to make a cut a little bit more in line down here, and then on the inside. And that'll just kind of smooth it out there a little bit versus being so choppy here. So cut there, and then you can also see that because of this gap, you've got to do some relief cuts in the metal. So what I've done is I've basically made lines. They're 1 inch apart, basically starting at the center and working outwards at 1 inch. So I'm going to cut this, pie cut this, so that I can now take this inner and I can now push it up. So I'm going to come up to short of this line. I don't want to go directly below it because when I fold this up, what it's going to do is these fingers are going to split. They're going to split apart. And that's going to leave water intrusion in there, so which I want to minimize this as best as possible. So I'm going to come up short, maybe to about here or so, which will leave me maybe about 3/4 of an inch roughly down. And I'm going to sneak up on this like I have with everything. It's easier to cut more than to have to weld up later. So cut short of that, then fold up, and I'll show you how I'm going to fold this up evenly as soon as I get all this cut. So again, put the face mask on. Hope you guys like that. That was fun. And then I'm going to do that again and cut, and I'll show you how to fold and bend when you're ready. Okay, now with everything cut, I used a hacksaw to go the rest of the way. Now this is a little bit thinner, obviously, than your cutting wheel, so less to try to fill in. The pie cut you see will help the metal bend up, and you can kind of do them as individual fingers and that. And then once you get close, you can start using like a hammer dolly out of a body kit. So you can just use some channel locks or whatever. You're just going to bend that up close. Up that way. Yeah, get up in there. And if you find you need to cut anything else, all you have to do is just get out your hacksaw and basically just make a little bit more cut so it can fit. The goal is to get the inner bent up so that it's touching the outer, because you need to weld this stuff to make it all fit. Okay, so now I have everything painted with some SEM weld through primer, and that's pretty much for corrosion, and then I weld through it to seal it, give it structure, and then I'll re-primer it over it just to make sure that everything's covered. So you can kind of see this is just paper that I had, some packaging paper, and it's covering up basically anything I didn't want to get paint on, which is like the quarter sail finishers, windows, anything like that. So it just kept it local here, and then I left it to dry. A couple places didn't dry enough, so I just used a heat gun to basically evaporate off all the solvents out, and that took care of it. So now to the welding piece, which is always the fun. You know, I've made all the pie cuts, and I actually adjusted a couple since before, and that was just using the hacksaw. Very simple, just kind of give it a little push, right where you need. Now's the fun part. So I've got, you can see two localized up here that are touching now, and those are ready for welding. So I've got my welder set up, my MIG welder. And what I'm just using is basically a wet piece of wood, literally I just pulled from outside, and I've used it on my floor jack. So I've jacked my jack up till it contacts, and then I'm just basically going up until it just touches. And that's all I want. I just want the inner and the outer to touch. I'm going to do a couple tack welds on each one. I'm going to then move the board to the next pieces, couple tack welds, and I'm just going to go back and forth. That way I don't localize all the heat on the inner and the outer. So I can just do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, and I'm just going to go crisscross back and forth until it's all done. And then at that point, you can just basically make sure everything's covered and sealed for the structure piece here, and then we can start worrying about the cuts now, how to seal those up. Okay, so once you've gone back and forth, but basically I started in the center, left, right, and just kind of made it all the way around piece by piece. And you can see there's kind of a, like 1 to 2 little small welds, basically on each tab, just holding it to the outer. Once you have all those in place, you can then go back through and kind of clean up a little bit, re-weld everything, make sure the tabs are welded very well with the inner and the outer, and then those will be sealed. Now I'm going to leave these sitting out for now because if you remember I wanted to put in a wheel liner, and I want to use these as a structure to be able to do that. So we'll leave those for now. I'll finish the welding afterward, and that way you guys don't have to sit and watch the tedious piece of that. Now to seal this, there's plenty of different options. I've seen some guys do some 3N bond, basically it's like toothpaste. You slather it up and in there. And I think what I'm going to do is use some DEI boom mat. So it's a butyl base. It blocks water in that, and I think it'll add a little bit of structure. So I'm going to check out if I have to do that on the inner or the outer. But either way, I think I have some extra of that, and I'm going to use that. So I will do that in another episode to not keep you guys forever today. But that's kind of the whole piece of at least getting the wide body together. Now, if it's a track car, you're pretty much almost done other than the welding and maybe some primer or something. But for a street car, if you're worried about making sure it is weather sealed and all that, you're going to have to wait for another episode. So if you guys have any questions or have any, I guess, interest in any of the tools I've used in this episode, check the description. I'll put them in my Amazon store. And I think that's it for today. So, gosh, that's a lot to cover, isn't it? So anyway, this is all one day. I've shot it. And you can break it up as you need to make it fit. So with that, Basin Motorsports out.